Hey, what's up? It's Theun, and I wanted to quickly go over Farseer Rest of Shaman now that we've had about a week or so to play with it on the alpha. And I think more importantly, I've also gotten to play all the other healers and what their healer talents and stuff do to kind of compare it against Farseer. Because I originally wasn't super hot on Farseer. After playing with it, it feels a little bit better than I expected, but I think it needs some other changes to really make it like great. So, um, first and foremost, this is what they look like whenever you summon them. So press Unleash Life here. Uh, they're really transparent and really blue, but they're really hard to see whenever you have other effects on the ground. So if there's swirlies on the floor in a boss fight or something, or even just having healing rain down, um, like you can see, it's really hard to tell that I've actually done something. I've summoned an Ancestor to help me heal. Um, and you compare that to another passive tree like Void Weaver for Discipline Priest. You press Mind Blast, and then you shoot out this giant circle that goes underneath your target, and like you can see the circle growing as you cast penance and stuff. And then whenever it's done, it shoots out a bunch of orbs like a slot machine, shooting coins out of the target's head whenever it's done. Way more visual apparent than what we have, and both of them are passive. So would like some visual clarity and stuff, just so you actually know that you've summoned Granddad to help you press Chain Heal, for example. Um, so I want to go over some of the spell interactions and stuff and exactly what these ancestors do. So they cast spells when we cast spells. If you're not casting, they're not doing anything. They just sit there. Um, so they have four spells that they can cast. They have Lava Burst for single target damage. It does always critical strike, it seems like, so that's nice. Um, Chain Lightning that hits two targets for AoE damage, and then Healing Surge for single target healing, and Chain Heal again that hits two targets for AoE healing. And so if I cast a AoE heal, they will cast Chain Heal. If I cast like Lightning Bolt, they will cast Lava Burst, etc. Um, and none of our talents really interact with their spells at all. So if I take Ancestral Reach or High Tide, that doesn't make their Chain Heals more powerful. The only way to make them more powerful is to buff them in the hero talent tree, like with Latent Wisdom, for example. None of their healing goes into Cloudburst Totem, and they actually make up a good portion of our healing right now. So much so that I don't actually think Cloudburst Totem would be worth it. But obviously, we're in week one of the alpha, so things could definitely change. I would prefer if their healing did go into Cloudburst Totem, if they're going to be doing so much of our healing, though. Um, and really, the name of the game for Farseer is kind of like quantity over quality. So a lot of their individual healing spells or damage spells, they don't really do that much, but you're summoning so many ancestors, especially through routine communications, that uh, like they still make up a sizable amount of our healing. And I think I would rather that pendulum get swung back towards like less random spawns, but every one that you do spawn is a little bit more impactful. And kind of going back to like that visual thing, Void Weaver feels impactful, and it's not always up. Although you can actually have pretty high uptime on Void Weaver as well, but it feels a lot better to play Void Weaver than it does to play Farseer, for example. And I think part of that is just because you're summoning so many of them that it kind of feels like redundant or not as good. So that's one thing, a feedback I think I would pass along. Um, so their healing spells also don't go into Ascendance or Ancestral Guidance. So really, we don't have a whole lot of interactions with them. The one caveat there is Unleash Life does always spawn one, so you will be playing it. If you're a Mythic Plus player, this probably is bad news to you. Sorry, but it is like just that much better to play Unleash Life than it is to play Undulation. If they make Undulation like also summon them somehow, then that would be nice. But for now, if you don't like Unleash Life, you probably won't be playing Farseer. Primordial Wave can summon them since you do press a Riptide, and that did work whenever I was testing. And also, Primal Tide Core did seem to have an increased chance to summon them. So that's really nice. I don't think this is so much like a requirement to run, for example, because High Tide is so much better than Primal Tide Core naturally. But this just gives Primal Tide Core a little bit of oomph. And if you had like a tier set bonus or something that perhaps Enhanced Riptide or something like that, could maybe push Primal Tide Core over the edge, for example. Um, but yeah, that's really all the interactions that we had. It's pretty bare bones and it's passive. You could probably copy a talent build and never read the Farseer tree at all, and you'd be perfectly fine. Part of that's a good thing. I think Shaman is like an easy healer to pick up, but kind of hard to master because of things like Cloudburst Totem, Primordial Wave, etc. Um, and it has a lot of buttons, especially in Mythic Plus when you're taking a bunch of utility options as well. So being passive is a good thing, but like I mentioned earlier, Void Weaver is also passive, and I think Void Weaver does what it does much better than what Farseer does. Um, One of the things that felt both good and bad about Farseer is Offering from Beyond. So this felt better than expected. This happens just way more frequently than I was expecting originally. Um, just because, like I said earlier, you're summoning so many different ancestors throughout the fight. But because of that, you actually feel like you're kind of spamming Riptide at times, rather than casting the spells that you want to be pressing, like Healing Rain or uh, Chain Heal, or if we ever did take Wellspring again, then Wellspring, etc. Um, if you're getting like 3 or 4 spawns back to back to back, then you're just kind of spamming Riptide, and I don't really like that part of the tree. Um, with Elemental Reverb, we get a Riptide charge and a Lava Burst charge, which feels great, but it was like still not enough, and I almost wanted to take Echo of the Elements on top of it, despite gaining almost no value except for those in like rare situations where you're like spamming Riptide just to keep it off cooldown. So I think this was like another thing that kind of points towards I think we need to have less summons so that this is happening less frequently, so you're not like just spamming Riptide back to back to back, um, and make each of the ancestors be a little bit more impactful when they are summoned. And then lastly, I think Earthen Communion, it feels nicer to have more charges in Earthshield, but again, not really a huge Earthshield fan myself. It's a great spell, absolutely will press it and take all the talents that buff it, but I kind of wish, I'm kind of sick of repressing Earthshield every 30 seconds, so this helps that a little bit, especially in Mythic Plus, but yeah, still just kind of a nothing burger choice node, especially with how bad Natural Harmony is. So um, yeah, I think all in all, I think summoning the ancestors less often, making them a little bit more visually impactful or apparent that you've actually summoned one, um, would be nice, and making them like a little bit more like powerful while they're out would be nice. And also just like having their healing going in Cloudburst Totem again would be really nice. Um, so those are the things that I'm kind of like looking for them to push towards, is maybe less frequent, more impactful, uh, a little bit more visually apparent and stuff, and less of this like really really high RNG like summon tons of granddads that kind of do nothing. So that's all I wanted to talk about today. Apparently should be getting Totemic soon, so whenever that's out, I will probably make a video a few days after it's released, just so that I get to play around with it and stuff. But it seemed promising, so yeah, I will catch you guys later.